A young female CEO mocked a quiet mechanic's old notebook, thinking it was useless in her high-tech company. But when she opened it and saw her father's signature inside, everything she believed about her company, her father, and the man standing in front of her began to change. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Callum Reed did not look like the kind of man Arden Sloane Technologies usually let pass the glass lobby. His jacket was clean but old. His boots had the quiet scuff marks of someone who worked with his hands. And the brown notebook tucked under his arm looked painfully out of place among the polished tablets, security badges, and glowing wall screens. He had almost turned around twice before reaching the reception desk. Not because he was afraid of the building, because the building had once belonged to a man who changed his life. Graham Sloane. The name still sat heavy in Callum's chest. Years ago, Graham had found him in a machine shop behind a failing community college, a quiet young man with more patience than confidence. Graham had not offered him charity. He had offered him standards. He taught him how to read pressure lines, how to listen to a machine before touching it, and how to never confuse expensive technology with intelligent design. Then Graham vanished from Callum's world after a messy company split. No grand goodbye. No explanation. Only the notebook. Now Callum was here as a temporary systems contractor, called in because Arden Sloane's new medical transport prototype had locked during a private demonstration. The launch event was 48 hours away. Investors were waiting. Hospitals were waiting. And the young CEO, Marlowe Sloane, was walking into the testing floor with a face that looked calm only because she had practiced it. She was 28, sharp-eyed, and dressed in a cream suit that made everyone around her stand straighter. But Callum noticed what others missed. Her fingers tightened around her tablet every time the prototype alarm blinked. She was not cruel. She was terrified of failing in public. "Which one of you is Reed?" she asked. Callum raised his hand. Her eyes moved over him quickly, not unkindly, but with doubt. "You're the contractor from North Pier Mechanics?" "Yes. You understand this isn't a garage door motor?" A few engineers looked down, pretending not to hear. Callum kept his voice steady. "I read the brief." Marlowe glanced at the notebook under his arm. "And that's your brief?" There was a small smile on her face. Not a mean one. Worse, a tired one. The kind people used when they had already decided you could not help them. Callum felt the old embarrassment rise in him, but he pushed it down. "This is older actuator mapping," he said. "Same principle, different casing." "The casing is the whole product," she replied. "No," Callum said softly. "The casing is what sells it. The timing is what saves it." That made her look at him properly. For 1 second, the room went quiet enough for the machine's warning pulse to sound like a heartbeat. Marlowe stepped closer. "Show me." Callum opened the notebook with care. The pages were worn thin at the corners. Some lines were faded. Others had been rewritten so many times the ink looked almost carved into the paper. Marlowe watched his hands. He did not rush. He did not try to impress her. He traced one diagram, checked the prototype's exposed panel, then pointed to a timing relay on the monitor. "This delay is too clean," he said. One engineer frowned. "Too clean. It's compensating before the pressure shift happens. That means your software is correcting a problem it hasn't felt yet." Marlowe's expression changed. Not belief yet. Interest. Callum turned the page. That was when she saw it. Inside the front cover, faded but clear, was a signature written in blue ink. Graham Sloane. Below it, one line. "Callum builds slowly. The world already breaks fast enough." Marlowe stopped breathing for a moment. The tablet lowered in her hand. All the authority in her face cracked into something younger, softer, almost wounded. "Where did you get this?" she asked. Callum looked at her, and for the first time, he saw the daughter before the CEO. "He gave it to me," he said. Marlowe swallowed. "My father didn't give things away." Callum closed the notebook halfway. "No," he said. "He gave them to people he thought might carry them carefully." Her eyes stayed on the signature. And suddenly, the failed prototype was no longer the only thing in the room waiting to be fixed. Marlowe did not touch the notebook. She looked like she wanted to. Her hand lifted slightly, then stopped, as if the paper might burn her. Callum noticed. That small hesitation told him more than her expensive office, her title, or the way everyone waited for her permission before breathing too loudly. This was not just a CEO looking at an old signature. This was a daughter standing in front of a locked door she had never been allowed to open. "My father left this company before I was old enough to understand why," she said quietly. The engineers around them shifted, uncomfortable with hearing anything personal from her. Callum glanced at them, then back at her. "We can talk somewhere else." Marlowe's face tightened again, the CEO mask trying to return. "No, we fixed the system first." Callum respected that. He nodded once and turned back to the prototype. The next hour moved with controlled pressure. No dramatic speeches, no miracle fix. Just Callum asking precise questions, reading old diagrams, comparing them to modern code, and catching small mismatches the team had overlooked because everyone had been too focused on the final product to question the first assumption. Marlowe stayed beside him. At first, she challenged every step. Why bypass that? Because it's giving false confidence. Why reduce power there? Because the machine is bracing like it expects impact. You talk about it like it's alive. "No," Callum said, eyes still on the panel. "I talk about it like it can hurt someone if pride gets in the way." That answer stayed with her. The room quieted again. One of the senior engineers, Dorian Pike, folded his arms. He had been with the company long enough to treat every outsider like an insult. With respect, Dorian said, though there was little respect in it, "This system passed 3 simulations." Callum did not look up. Then the simulations were trained to agree with the design. Marlowe turned toward Dorian. "Run it again with Reed's delay correction." Dorian stared at her. "Marlowe, run it again." This time, her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The new test began. The prototype arm moved, paused, adjusted, and locked into place without the violent pressure spike that had ruined every earlier attempt. No one clapped. That made it feel more real. People just stared at the monitor, relieved and slightly ashamed. Marlowe exhaled slowly. Callum stepped back, closing the notebook. "Don't celebrate yet," he said. "It held once. Now you test it until it earns trust." Marlowe looked at him, and there was the faintest trace of a smile. "You always this difficult? Only around machines and people pretending they don't have feelings." For a second, she almost laughed. Almost. Then her phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen, and the softness left her face. Callum saw only a few words before she turned away. "Board requesting emergency review. Investor confidence unstable." Dorian saw it too. His expression changed, not with worry, but opportunity. "Marlowe," he said, "the board won't like hearing that an outside mechanic corrected our core system 2 days before launch." Callum felt the insult, but said nothing. Marlowe's eyes stayed on Dorian. "Then we won't phrase it like that." Dorian stepped closer. "Or we delay. Announce a minor compliance review. Protect the brand." "Protect the brand," she repeated. "Yes." Callum finally spoke. "And what about the hospitals waiting for this?" Dorian looked at him like he had forgotten Callum was still in the room. "This is a board-level decision." Marlowe turned toward Callum. "What would you do?" The question surprised him, not because he lacked an answer, because no one in that building had asked him like his answer mattered. "I'd tell the truth carefully," he said. "Not to embarrass the company, not to scare people, just enough to prove you care more about safe delivery than looking perfect." Marlowe studied him. There was something dangerous in that advice. Not reckless, honest. And honesty had a cost in rooms where image was treated like oxygen. "You sound like him," she said. Callum looked down at the notebook. "Graham hated shortcuts." "My father also left," she replied, and this time the pain slipped through before she could hide it. "Everyone talks about his principles. Nobody explains why his principles didn't keep him here." Callum's expression softened. He didn't leave because he stopped caring. Marlowe's breathing changed. "What do you know?" Callum hesitated. This was the part of the story Graham had asked him not to carry unless the right person needed it. For years, Callum had thought that meant never. But Marlowe was standing in front of him now, trying to hold a company together with one hand and a childhood wound with the other. He found a flaw in an earlier transport design, Callum said. Not this one. Years ago, he refused to sign off. The board pushed back. The fight got ugly. Marlowe went still. My mother told me he walked away because he couldn't handle pressure. Callum's jaw tightened. No, he walked away because he wouldn't let pressure make him careless. The words landed hard. Marlowe turned toward the glass wall, where her reflection looked polished and broken at the same time. For the first time that day, Callum wanted to reach for her. Not as a contractor, not as the man with the old notebook, just as someone who understood what it felt like to be shaped by silence. But he kept his hands at his sides. Marlowe looked back at him. Come with me to the board review, she said. Dorian's face darkened. That is not appropriate. Marlowe did not look away from Callum. No, she said. It's necessary. Callum held the notebook a little tighter. Behind her calm eyes, he saw fear. Behind the fear, he saw courage beginning to move. And, somehow, that scared him more than the boardroom waiting upstairs. The boardroom at the top of Arden Sloane Technologies was too clean for a room where people made messy decisions. Long glass table, city skyline behind it, water bottles lined up like evidence. 7 board members sat waiting, their faces calm in the practiced way powerful people looked calm when they were already angry. Marlowe entered first. Callum followed with the old notebook held at his side. Dorian came in last, and he did not sit. He stood near the screen like a man preparing to steer the room before anyone else could speak. Miss Sloane, the chairwoman said, we need a direct explanation. Marlowe placed her tablet on the table. The prototype had a timing instability. We found it before launch, corrected the first layer, and we need a controlled delay for full safety testing. A gray-haired board member leaned forward. A delay will damage confidence. A failure would damage patience, Marlowe replied. No one spoke for a moment. Callum looked at her from the side. Her voice was steady, but he saw the pressure in the small movements. The way her thumb pressed against her palm. The way she held her shoulders like she was refusing to let old fear bend them. Dorian cleared his throat. With respect, Marlowe is under emotional strain. The correction came from an outside contractor using outdated notes. I recommend we move the announcement through my office and keep technical details limited. Callum felt the room tilt toward Dorian. It was subtle, dangerous, not because Dorian was shouting, but because he sounded reasonable. Marlowe's face did not change, but Callum saw the hurt flash through her eyes. She had expected resistance, not betrayal dressed as protection. The chairwoman looked toward Callum. Mr. Reed, is it true the correction came from an old notebook? Callum stepped forward. The correction came from the team's own system data. The notebook only helped me recognize what the data was trying to say. Dorian smiled thinly. That sounds poetic, not technical. Callum opened the notebook. He did not hold it up like a trophy. He placed it gently on the glass table and turned to page 42. This note was written by Arden Sloane, he said. It describes the same design behavior your system showed today. Overcorrection before real pressure feedback. The room changed. Not loudly, just enough. The chairwoman's eyes dropped to the page. Another board member leaned closer. Marlowe stayed still. Callum continued. Your founder warned against building systems that pretend to be stable because the numbers look clean. He believed machines should be tested under uncomfortable truth, not comfortable assumptions. Dorian's jaw tightened. Arden Sloane is not here to approve this. No, Callum said, but his daughter is. Marlowe looked at him. In that one glance, something passed between them. Not romance in the cheap, sudden way. Something quieter. Recognition. Trust. The feeling of being seen at the exact moment you're trying not to break. Marlowe turned back to the board. My father left me a company with a reputation, she said. But reputation is not inheritance. Responsibility is. Her voice softened, but it grew stronger. I spent years thinking he abandoned this place because he was weak. Today I learned he left because he refused to sell confidence when he had doubts. I won't repeat the mistake everyone made by calling caution failure. The chairwoman folded her hands. What are you proposing? A 72-hour safety extension. A transparent statement to partners. No panique. No blam. Just accountability. Dorian will step back from launch authority during the review. Callum Reed will consult with the engineering team, but final testing remains internal. Dorian stared at her. You can't remove me over one disagreement. Marlowe looked at him with sadness, not anger. I'm not removing you for disagreeing. I'm removing you because you try to hide risk to protect image. That was the power shift. No humiliation. No revenge. Just a line finally drawn. By evening, the launch announcement went out carefully. Some investors complained. A few headlines questioned the delay. But the hospitals waiting for Arden's transport system did not cancel. They thanked Marlowe for saying the quiet part aloud. 3 days later, the prototype passed every stress test. Callum was in the workshop when Marlowe found him, sleeves rolled up, a grease mark near one wrist, the notebook resting open beside a tray of tools. For once, she was not wearing the cream suit. Just a dark coat, simple shoes, and a tired smile that looked more like her than anything he had seen all week. You were right, she said. Callum looked up. About the relay? About testing until trust is earned. He closed the notebook. Your father would have liked that. Marlowe stepped closer. I wish I'd known him the way you did. Callum's expression softened. Maybe you still can. Not fully, but honestly. She looked down at the notebook. Would you let me read it? He hesitated only for a second. Then he handed it to her. Their fingers touched briefly. Neither of them pulled away too quickly. Marlowe opened the front cover again and traced her father's signature without quite touching the ink. He wrote your name like he was proud of you, she said. Callum's throat tightened. He wrote yours in the margins more than once. Her eyes lifted. What? Callum turned a few pages and pointed to a small note near the edge. For Marlowe, when she's old enough to ask better questions than I did. She covered her mouth, not to hide a sob, but to hold herself together with dignity. Callum stood beside her in silence. No one clapped. No dramatic music swelled. Outside the workshop windows, rain softened the city lights until everything looked less sharp. Marlowe leaned against the workbench, shoulder close to his. Unlock that notebook, she whispered. Callum smiled faintly. You were under pressure. I was arrogant. A little. She looked at him, surprised. Then she laughed. It was small but real. Callum laughed too, and the sound seemed to loosen something in the room that had been waiting years to breathe. Later, when the building emptied and the prototype rested quietly under soft blue test lights, Marlowe and Callum sat together on the workshop floor, reading Graham Sloane's notes page by page. Between them lay an old notebook, a repaired machine, and the beginning of something neither of them needed to rush. For the first time in years, Marlowe did not feel like she had inherited a ghost. She felt like she had found a door. And beside her sat the man who had carried the key.